Right. I think we are live. Just get things set up in the right way. Just wait a couple of seconds for people to come in on all the different places. Leave a comment in the chat. Got quite an interesting one for you today. And as always, subscribe, like, and stuff. If there's a problem with the audio, let me know. Excuse me. And yeah, the internet should be good, hopefully. If it's a problem, let me know. I think we're all right though. Yeah. Okay. So the title of this stream is something a bit, I guess you could say clickbaity, something a bit catchy, right? Exposing tarot, channeling, psychics, astrology, and numerology. And you might be wondering, what exactly do I mean by this? Exposing it, right? As if it's some kind of scam. Not quite, but it's yes and no. Okay. And there's many things to cover with this. It's quite complex, and yeah, there's a lot to go over. I'm going to try and keep it as concise as possible, but just bear with me a second. It is quite a lot to go over. I'm just going to very quickly check that I'm on the right internet connection because it's looking a little bit dodgy. I get this little warning sometimes, comes up on the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Okay. So basically, with these things, there is a dark side and a light side. Both sides use the same tools. Tarot, channeling, psychics, astrology, numerology. These things are basically neutral tools. They're neutral. They're not good or bad, but some people obviously use them for good and some people obviously use them for bad. And this is where things have got, I think, a bit complex. And it's easy to look at people using something like tarot or like astrology, numerology for bad stuff and label the whole thing as bad when it's not really the thing, it's actually the people using the thing. So just try and see this as they are tools, and for the most part, they're quite neutral. And also many of them have, so like tarot readings, pick a card readings, all this stuff have kind of been used because they are very popular and they're trending. Especially on social media, you've seen a load of these channels pop up, these like tarot card, pick a card readings. Everyone seems to now be able to channel and understand and channel light language. Everybody now seems to understand astrology and birth charts and zodiac signs, and so you have to wonder, how many of these channels actually know what they're talking about? Not very many. And the reason for that is that they are popular. They're basically capitalizing on how popular a lot of these things are. That being said, like I said, the tools are neutral. Tarot card readings, and I will explain, a train kind of like going along a train track. I did make a video about this morning, and as I was filming it, I realized there's actually a lot more to talk about here. So basically, we'll start by going through each one kind of like individually, and then I will tie them all together with this train track analogy and kind of explain how you can use them, like how you can use these things for good, and also how people have been able to use them for bad and why there's kind of that separation between the two. So as always, if you are in the stream, I see people kind of like leaving and then joining and leaving again quite rapidly. So I'm not sure if it's a connection problem, but yeah, leave a comment in the little thing if you can actually see this and the audio is good. If the internet quality is not so good, because I keep getting this warning, just let me know. There will be a high quality version uploaded later. And the podcast, if you're listening to this on the podcast, then it will already be high quality. So, okay. So let's start with tarot cards. And people are saying that everything's looking good. So fine. So tarot cards. As you may have seen, tarot cards are these little kind of like picture cards. They usually have an image and sometimes a number. And it's basically, usually they're kind of like nicely designed, quite big, about this big, almost like a book size cards. And then you basically ask the deck questions. So you might say, like, should I leave my job? Or what should I learn? You know, what should I watch out for this week? And you basically ask the deck the question. And then the way they're supposed to work is that the universe is going to influence the cards in such a way that you will pick out a card that gives you your answer. You'll pick out a card that gives you the answer to whatever the question is that you're asking. Now, sometimes they seem accurate, sometimes they don't, especially with the people who do this on YouTube, like the pick a card reading sort of thing. Sometimes they seem like they fit, and other times they don't. And that mainly has to do with how skilled the tarot reader is, because the vast majority of them don't really know what they're doing, and they're not a clear channel for doing this stuff. But more importantly, the tarot deck in itself is picking up on the trajectory of consciousness. Trajectory means the direction something is going, the direction it's heading. And this is why the train track analogy will make a lot more sense later on. But if you imagine, the tarot cards are basically picking up on the energy signatures of consciousness about what's most likely to happen. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And this is a really important thing, which I will explain fully later on. But basically, most of the decks, tarot card decks that you'll find, they have some kind of symbolism attached to them, whether it's like occult symbols, Celtic, pagan, different types of decks have different symbols, but you have to be careful because a lot of them are actually quite dark, and the meaning behind the symbols is actually quite ominous and dark, and others are kind of just neutral. So others are kind of more neutral, and they don't really have much meaning other than just giving the universe like a way to give a message to you. So if you imagine the universe is like this neutral thing, and the cards are also quite neutral, you as the kind of like person touching the deck and giving it your energy, allow the universe through the cards to give you a certain message. And this is where we get into things like synchronicity and numerology, and to some degree astrology, but astrology is more kind of, well, it is more fixed. It's not something that can change in response to the timeline you're on. It's more just the default state that you are born with that influences what you're most likely to become in your life. Smoothie break. So let me just check my notes here. So the problem with tarot cards, like I was saying before, you don't know the meaning of the symbols. So you can have a deck which has really dark kind of symbols on it, and because you don't know the meaning, you attach your own energy to it, and therefore it can be bad, right? It's not a good thing. So I would not recommend using tarot cards for that reason, but I'm not saying they're inaccurate. And I want to just touch on these briefly one by one, all of the different things in the title of this stream, one by one, and then at the end I will tie them all together. I promise it won't take long. Okay, so numerology. Now you may have noticed that let's call them the dark side, right? I have to be a bit careful what I say here, but let's call them the dark side. They're obsessed with numerology, numbers, dates, patterns, timings, all of this stuff. Basically, they are obsessed with numbers and numerology. But that doesn't mean that numerology and numbers inherently themselves are bad. It just means that they are a good indicator of certain things. They're also a good, in some cases, they're a good kind of source of energy and power, neutral energy and power. And this is quite important to realize, because just because one person uses something or a group of people use something, it doesn't make that thing bad necessarily. It just means that they're using the thing. So numerology is a classic example of this. The thing itself is quite neutral. And if you think of this world as a hologram, and I've made all kinds of videos about this on my channel. The world is a holographic kind of bioillusion. So you can look, you can kind of hack the hologram and look a bit beyond the horizon about what's most likely to happen next, because time is non-linear. So you're able to just look a little bit beyond the horizon and see what's most likely to happen next. Numerology is an interesting way of doing that. And this is kind of the reason that the, let's call them the dark side, have been using numerology and dates to kind of do that. At the same time, different dates and different times of the circadian cycle and also of the big cycles have different energies and different purposes. So you may have come across this before, but this idea that, you know, certain times of the month are better for doing certain things, certain times of the day are better for doing certain things. For example, like it's better to meditate before sunrise and at sunset. It's, the energies are stronger. I don't know if you felt this yourself when if you tried to meditate at those times. There's a reason for it. This hologram has cheat codes laced throughout it, right? And numerology is one of those cheat codes. Different times, dates, and numbers have different energies attached to them. And so what that means is that there are certain times, certain dates that are better to do things than other certain dates and times. And the elites know this. You know, a lot of people know this. I would say they are more obsessed with it because it goes back into like the history of it and how, yeah, stuff I can't really mention here, but basically that's the gist of how it works. So what happens is when you see these kind of number reports or numerology reports, the vast majority of them don't really work and they're not super accurate anyway. Okay. But some of them do work. And the way they're able to kind of do that is that they use certain dates. So the hologram has different codes laced throughout it. You may have heard of things like the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio. These things are patterns, numerical patterns that appear again and again throughout the hologram, you know, the universe, basically. And someone in the comments here, let me just bring that up actually, said the global meditations usually are on specific dates and times. Yeah, because the energies align at those times and it's more powerful, it's more amplified when you do it on certain dates and times. So basically the universe and the hologram has different cheat codes throughout it. The golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence is one example. Numbers are everywhere. And of course, if you're into maths, if you're into mathematics, you'll know this. But numbers basically are absolutely everywhere. Everything is numbers and maths. The structure of our atoms and our DNA is dictated by a mathematical code or sequence. And this is not just like me saying it. This has been proven. And you know, at the quantum level, there's all kinds of different layers of reality. Chemistry, biology, even psychology can be broken down into numbers. And what numerology kind of shows you, if you get a good reading and a good system, is it shows you based on your current stats. So things like your date of birth, your age, the letters in your name, right? All of these things that you would think they would be random, but they actually have an enormous amount of influence over certain things, not everything, but certain things. And this is also going to segue quite nicely into astrology in a second. But they have certain meanings. It's definitely a lot more interesting than it seems. And so one example is you can get this free numerology report. Okay, so if you want to just, you know, dip your toe in the water and have a very quick look at this stuff, in the description, there's actually a link to a thing where you can get a free, really personalized numerology report video. You may have already done it, but probably not, because yeah, this is a really good one. So the link's in the description on the YouTube. If you're not watching this on YouTube, then head over there. I'm not quite sure how to put a link in the StreamYard thing, but yeah, just go to Awakening Alliance on YouTube and you'll see the stream is live and you can just click the description there. So you can dip your toe in the water. The reading's very accurate, it's very personalized, and it's very interesting. especially, if you've never done numerology reports, if you've never done anything like this, it's very interesting to see how these things line up, like how the numbers actually can tell you quite a lot about your life, where you're going, where you've been, the type of personality you've developed. These things, you'd be surprised, can be quite accurately determined by certain things. Now, the hologram, oh, sorry, we mentioned that. Okay, so it's more neutral than things like tarot cards. Numerology and astrology specifically are very much more neutral than tarot cards. With tarot cards, you have a lot of influence coming from the person reading the cards and also from the deck and the symbolism on the cards. So it's almost impossible to know that the deck is clean, the symbols don't mean anything dodgy or bad, and also the person using the cards knows what they're doing and they're not compromised in any way. So this is why my general kind of go-to advice for tarot cards is to just avoid them, because it's one of those things where the benefits don't really outweigh the risks, and the risks are quite big. Well, massive, really. I mean, it depends how seriously you take the reading. But if let's say you watch a reading from somebody who's compromised or from a deck that has negative symbolism, the message that it would tell you, like the thing that it would tell you to do, could end up being completely against your best interest. It could be pushing you in a direction that is really not going to be good for you at all. And the benefits, let's assume that you get lucky and you find a person who knows what they're doing and a deck that's not got bad symbolism, and also it all lines up. The benefits are, well, okay, you might have some loose idea about what is most likely to happen. And I promise you, I'm almost at the point with the train track analogy. I'm almost there. You might have some idea, but it's not the determining factor. It's not the thing that's going to make sure. It's not like the most accurate thing that is going to tell you exactly what's going to happen and everything's going to line up exactly how it says. It gives you a small clue, but the risks associated with getting that clue are massive. So I would for tarot cards, I would avoid them. Numerology, I would do it. And there's a very interesting and good reason for that. Like I said, numerology, astrology, and to some degree channeling, or not really, mainly astrology and numerology, they're very neutral. They're things that are based on a system. They are not based on some random person. Because when you involve one person, things get tricky. Things get very tricky, and it becomes difficult to know whether the person, the channel, the psychic, the tarot card reader is a clear channel, or whether they're compromised, whether some kind of energy is interfering with them. All kinds of things could be happening when you involve a person, a human being. And that's why it gets risky. With numerology and astrology, it's more just about, here's the system, you input your details, and then the system outputs your results, your answers, if you want to call it that. So it's very much like based in fact instead of based on subjective and easily influenced things like channeling, tarot, psychic, whatever. So I'll take a very quick break now and just see what questions and comments we have here. Leave a comment wherever you're watching this. Leave a comment. It should pop up here. And then just go ahead and give this stream a little like on YouTube. Stephen on YouTube says, any suggested methods to numerology and or keywords? Yeah, so like I said, I don't know when you joined the stream, but I did actually mention before. There's my highly recommended numerology report, which is free, and it's like a personalized video, which the link is in the description of the YouTube stream. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, go to Awakening Alliance on YouTube, and then in the description of that, you can find this numerology report. It's quite a detailed one, but yeah, that's what I would recommend for that. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Numerology and astrology are much more neutral systems. can't change the time you were born, and I mean, you can change your name, but usually you would input your kind of first name or your birth name. So you can't change your birth name. So, and it's because you can't change those things, it gives you a much more stable foundation to actually use a system. When you input your details in a numerology report or in an astrology star chart reading, unless you lie, you're putting in details that can't be changed and cannot be influenced by a random person. So it's very much based in, like, if you're born on this day and you're born on this time, these influences astrologically are very likely to influence your emotions, or you are very likely to have this problem in your life. Everything in everything in the world, in the hologram, is influenced by everything else. So with things like astrology, the planets and the stars and their position at certain times does have a meaning. The ancient civilizations, so if you look back to any advanced ancient civilization, if you looked at the people in, the civilizations in Egypt, the Mayan pyramids, Egyptian pyramids, like they built their megastructures, and this could be an entire live stream in itself. They built their megastructures in perfect alignment with the constellations in the sky. They somehow knew and had calculated within like fractions of an inch accuracy, specifically where certain stars, planets, and constellations were going to be at certain times. And they were able to accurately track them throughout the year. And not only that, but like build their structures in specific places on the Earth that aligned with those constellations at a time when we are told that they were barely out of the Stone Age. They were just running around with spears and stuff, which obviously is not true. But they knew this stuff. They spent an enormous amount of energy, time, and resources on preserving that knowledge and making sure that their buildings and structures were aligned with the constellations. Some of the only remaining structures, the Great Pyramids being the biggest example, but the Mayan pyramids and various temples and things, are in perfect alignment with certain star constellations. Now, I don't think that's random. I don't think that means, to me, that says that that's probably more important and more relevant than an ancient historical story or something like, an ancient, it seems to me more relevant, especially when all the stuff we're learning now about the constellations and the astrological influences. It, to me, seems that it's highly relevant and that they knew this. They didn't preserve anything really else. I mean, there's certain things, but they didn't make as much of an effort to preserve anything else. It was mainly these structures that were aligned with astrological influences. Now, of course, I could go on about that for ages. I've spent probably too long reading about the Great Pyramid and all the different codes and stuff associated with that. That's actually another very interesting rabbit hole. If you want to go down, maybe I can pull out my book recommendations. But basically, astrology is decoding the hologram to see what's most likely to happen or what has happened before. Planets and stars, like the idea that planets and stars affected things or predicted things, was known thousands of years ago. I think one of the earliest recorded times was in Babylon. This was literally 1st century BC and onwards. But even before then, right, like I said, the Egyptians, this is not a new thing. Okay, now we're finally getting to the train track analogy. So thank you if you've stuck with me this far. Hopefully, it's all going to make sense. Before we get to the train track analogy, just leave a comment if you have any questions, and I'll take a short break. Right, so okay. So like I explained, that these things are more just kind of neutral tools. Basically, what they are able to show you, if you imagine that everything's a hologram, So things that are going to happen in the future have already happened, and things that have happened in the past are going to happen in the future. An easier way of saying that is time is not a linear thing. Time is actually a circle, but not just a circle. It's actually a loop going in all directions, in every direction, all at the same time. So if you can just try and wrap your mind around that for a second, I'm now going to confuse you even more and say that with these things, imagine a train track, a timeline. So you're the train and you're going down this track. You're going in a certain direction with your life. So the direction you're going in is based on many things, but it's based on many things, but it's based on things like your programming, your social conditioning, your mindset, your past lives, influences in your life, astrological influences, and a few different other things. All of those things combine into this train that is heading in a certain direction, your timeline. If you don't change anything and if you don't become aware of that, you will just continue going down this train track on this timeline until you eventually die. Okay, so with these tools like astrology and channeling, tarot cards, assuming you find a good channel, what you're able to do is basically decode the hologram and just peek around the horizon. Just have a quick look at the sat nav, let's say, and just see what's further up ahead on the road. That doesn't mean that if you get a psychic reading or if you have a tarot card reading and they say that something specific is going to happen, that doesn't mean that that has to happen. Do you understand? It just shows you what is likely to happen if you don't change anything and if you continue on that train track. Now, I did make a video about this, which might not have been posted yet, but hopefully it explains it a bit more in there, but I'm going to really try my hardest here. So basically, you're on this train track going down this path in a specific direction, and these other things, astrology, numerology, whatever, allow you to see what's ahead and what's most likely to happen. But if you don't want to continue down that train track, you can change the track and go in a different direction. This is the point that everybody is missing. This is why I call the live stream Exposing Tarot Channeling Psychics, okay? Because they all miss the point. They are just showing you what is likely to happen in this current timeline, future. But you can change that. Do you see? You can actually decide through your conscious attention and focus to move from this train track to another one. And then, of course, when you do that, then when you take a psychic reading, tarot card reading, you're going to get a different result because you've actually changed the trajectory of your life. You've changed the focus, and this can happen instantly. You can do this purely through your thoughts and your focus alone. And you have been doing this. This is the other thing. All of the things leading up to this point in your life have led you to this point. And through your conscious focus or unconscious focus, you've created the life you're currently in. So if that's new information for you, then when you get a channeling or a psychic reading, it probably will feel quite accurate for you because you'll think, oh, well, yeah, that does feel right. Or, I would like that to happen. Or that does seem like it has been happening like in that way. But if you understand that you can create your own track, you can create your own timeline and your own track, you can decide where to go. You don't have to take that as set in stone. This is, I would say, the biggest mistake people make with, just all of these aspects of spirituality. They think that if they get a tarot reading, if they get a psychic channeling that says you're going to do this, I see you working with, I don't know, elderly people and teaching them how to sing. I see that in your future. Okay, well, that might not feel good. That might not feel like it makes sense for you. You might think, well, I don't see how that's going to happen. I don't want to do it. But what a lot of people do is they'll think, oh, well, since the psychic said it, it must be true. It must be likely to happen. And so they start to actually create it even more. Because again, the psychic is just telling you what's likely to happen in your future based on all of those other influences and decoding the hologram. So it's likely to happen. And then if you're super, open and receptive to these ideas, and you don't know about all the stuff I'm telling you here, you hear something like that, which confirms it even more, which makes it even more likely to happen, which is great for the psychic, because then they get all their stuff confirmed, and you think they're like super accurate, and then you go back to them, and then etc. Right? You could say it's a win-win, but it's not really a win-win, because the psychic, by confirming what was already likely to happen, locked in a reality that you might not have even wanted. Okay. So, like I say in most of my videos, you need to remember that the power has always been with you. It's never, the psychics and channels and stuff like that, they just show what's likely to happen. They don't decide whether that will happen. You decide that. Only you. So if you hear a reading or an astrology reading, remember, these are just ideas. These are all just ideas. These are just, picking up on energies and ideas that might happen. They might not. And they won't if you decide that they're not going to happen, because you can just change the track you're on through your focus. Now, this is why I think I've made a few videos about law of attraction, manifestation, this kind of thing. Really, they are all describing the same thing. They're all describing the same thing. That is basically what you focus on will expand. If you focus on something, let's say, for example, smoothie break. Okay, let's say, for example, you really want to be a race car driver. If you focus on it enough, you will change the timeline you're on, and you will eventually become a race car driver. But if instead you might say to your friends, I want to become a race car driver, but at the same time, you're focusing all your energy on your latest tax bill, or how that annoying person in your workplace is gossiping again, or whatever, someone cut you off in traffic, whatever you're focusing on, or how annoying it is that your football team lost the latest, whatever they are, cups or qualification competitions, whatever. If you're focusing on that, then that will expand, and what you say you want will not expand. I think I'm explaining this right. I mean, I hope I am. So basically, you can decide through what you focus on the reality that you will continue to get. This is something which a lot of people understand. A lot of people hear these ideas and they kind of agree with them, but not very many people truly understand and believe these ideas. Because it's so easy to say, well, I've tried focusing on something that I wanted and it didn't come true. Or I've tried manifesting something and it didn't happen. So you've got to understand that in this hologram, in the 3D level, not the 4D and 5D, but in the 3D level, there is a time delay. I was going to say there's a significant time delay, but it's not always that slow. Sometimes it is fast, but there's always a delay. So when you focus on something, when you put your energy into something, firstly, you need to focus on it a lot. Like, not just once, not just, when you're in a good mood doing your morning routine, and then you go the whole rest of the day without thinking about it. No, you need to really focus on it and channel your attention and conscious awareness on the thing you want. Then it's more likely to happen. Okay. But what a lot of people do is they'll say, oh yeah, I'm trying to manifest this thing. The most common one is money. I'm trying to manifest money. And then I say, well, okay, what are you doing to manifest money? Oh, I visualize it every morning in my morning routine. Okay, that's a very surface level thing. That's very basic. You're probably not going to get many results by just visualizing something once in your morning routine. you need to actually focus on it. At the same time, you need to cut off all your distractions. You need to optimize your life to allow that thing to happen. So this might be quite a short stream, actually. I don't know how long we're going to go with this one. But basically, before you look at anything like tarot cards, psychics, channeling, you need to first decide on the reality you actually want, right? You need to, before you have the call, before you look at the YouTube video with the pick a card, before you do any of this stuff, first step, because you're the creator, please remember that you are the person, the thing creating the result. You need to decide what you actually want, and really decide, not just, oh, I might kind of want some money, or I might kind of want a nice relationship or something. No, you need to really decide truly what you actually want. And when you've decided that, you need to write it down, get really clear, make a vision board, all of the stuff that really solidifies it. Okay. And then focus on one specific, and again, we can get into manifestation now a little bit, and then I'll bring it back around again at the end. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. So you need to focus on it, and specifically, you need to focus on one thing, not the actual result. Okay, stick with me here, not the actual result. Let's say you want money, or you want to have impact in the world. That's that's a better goal. You need to focus on imagining like a clone of yourself, and just try and imagine, like, okay, if this clone had already got that result, they were already rich, they already had impact, what would their day actually look like? This clone of yourself who had the result you're already trying to get. Let's use an example of money, because everyone wants to manifest money, right? Which is it's just a made up number, guys. But I mean, obviously it's useful for some things. Let's say you want to manifest money. Okay, imagine a clone of yourself who is already a millionaire, and try and visualize what comes to mind. Okay, what would they do? Would this clone of yourself who is a millionaire eat junk food 11 a.m. or would they wake up at 7 a.m.? When they talk to people, when they socialize, would they gossip and speak bad about people behind their backs, or would they talk about interesting, inspiring ideas? Would they be a positive influence? Would they skip a workout, this person, or would they do the workout even if they don't really feel like it? And I know this is quite basic, but this is what it's come to, right? Because people miss this. To focus on the clone of yourself who would have those things, and then try and become that clone. Try and become that kind of copy of yourself who already has those things. So sticking with the same example, okay, this clone of yourself who is already a millionaire, would they be worried or nervous or desperate for money to come in to their life? Well, probably not, right? And I'm kind of doing this exercise now with you. No, I mean, no, they wouldn't. They actually would they would feel abundant already, because they already have the money as one, but they also don't need the money because the money is coming into them naturally. So that's a big shift, because before I told you about this clone stuff, you might have been thinking, well, okay, I just need to visualize the money, and oh yeah, it will be so good when I get the money. And then you attach this energy to something which you don't have, which really just solidifies the idea that you don't have it. You're really actually just focusing on the empty gap where the money will be. You may have heard this before, the energy of lack. It's quite a popular term. But basically what you're doing is when you do it wrong, is you're focusing on what you don't have, which means the universe, again, many terms here, right? I don't want to polarize you with too many terms, but the energy is going to look at that and say, well, you're focusing on not having money. So the experience that I'm going to give you is not having money. Instead, you need to focus on visualizing the copy of yourself who already has a thing, and then just becoming that person, feeling like that person, embodying them. What would they do? How would they act? What would they say? How would they spend their time? And so on. And then what ends up happening is that you're essentially just creating that person. You're becoming that person, and that person naturally has those things. So the money will just kind of come towards you. And this is where the idea of manifestation feeling effortless comes in, because when you do it right, it doesn't really take much energy, much physical energy. It's quite effortless, actually. It just kind of happens because you've become a person who would have those things. So, okay. Going back to, let me just see if we've got any questions here. Alana says, I get it. I understand it. Good. Glad it makes sense. Yeah. Okay, it's kind of not really relevant, but I'll take it anyway. Since we're talking about spirituality, is astral projection safe? And what can I expect to see? Astral projection, I'm going to just hide that comment actually so that we can see what we're doing. Astral projection is basically, it can be safe and it can also not be safe. Okay, so I know that's a bit confusing, but basically it depends. But for the vast majority of people, you shouldn't really be messing around with that, especially if you're not already an expert lucid dreamer. The place I would recommend you to start is to become a lucid dreamer, to actually be able to control your dreams. When you can control your dreams regularly and reliably and with a lot of, a good degree of control, then experiment with astral projection. If you can't do that and you jump into trying to astral project, well, firstly, nature has safeguards. So you probably won't be able to do it anyway. Your body will probably there'll be this kind of firewall where you just simply don't have the skill. You won't have the ability and the skills to do it if you've not already mastered things like lucid dreaming, meditation, to some degree manifestation. Like you need to have a grasp on consciousness before you start diving into these things. So yeah, it can be safe. It also can be unsafe. But really, I wouldn't worry too much about it, because unless you have a good grasp on lucid dreaming and consciousness, you probably won't be able to do it anyway. So it's almost like this kind of safeguard in nature where it can be dangerous, but you're not able to put yourself in that danger until you're actually ready to deal with the danger. Do you see? So yeah, I hope that kind of makes sense. Right, back to the big stuff. So the things in the title of this stream. Mina says, can I get put on the list, please? Thank you. Not quite sure what list you mean, but if you're watching this on Facebook, then maybe come over to the YouTube, because in the description there's a whole bunch of different links and resources, tools and things like that. I will slightly later on be mentioning something else, which is more of like a community. I guess I could put it up now. Which is more of like a private community. I'll explain more at the end. Okay, so these things basically, oh, sorry, Mina, you said, can I get a reading? Well, basically, yeah, if you go to the YouTube, so if you go into the YouTube channel, type in Awakening Alliance to find this channel, and then in the description of this live stream, there's a link to the numerology video, which is like a personalized reading specifically for you. It's very good. It's free. It's no catch. So yeah, if you want to get that reading, it's pretty much the only one at the moment that I recommend. I've done it myself, and I always kind of refer back to it because it's quite good. So yeah, that is in the description of the YouTube stream. So if you just type in Awakening Alliance on YouTube, you'll find this channel and me here talking, and then you can get the reading. Anyone can, not just not just you. Anyone can. Okay, so these things mentioned in the title of the live stream show you the most likely thing to happen in your current timeline. So that's fine, and that's good. Okay. What I would recommend you to do is to do as many different things as you can. So take a numerology reading, get an astrology reading from somewhere else, get a psychic call from another person, and then watch a tarot pick a card reading, and then combine them all together. Don't just rely on one thing. Don't just rely on one source of information, like one little. Try and combine them all together and see what they have in common. When you do that, it's more likely to be accurate. Okay. Another thing you can do is you can just change the track. So I was saying this before, right? But these things tell you what's most likely to happen on your current timeline. You can actually just change the track you're on. And this, in my opinion, is the first thing you should do. Before you get any reading, before you do any of this stuff, first you need to actually decide, hold on a second, what life do I, what experience in my life do I actually want? Because, and here's the, right, let me just collect my thoughts for a second, because I get all excited about this stuff. The most difficult and kind of sad situation people find themselves in is they'll be depressed. They'll be going through some struggle or trauma in a relationship. They'll be in some kind of desperate state. They'll head over to YouTube and they'll search tarot card reading, tarot pick a card, yes or no. Or they'll go and have a call with a psychic. And they'll say, look, blah, 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 what do I do about this situation? Now, in that situation, the person is already desperate and stressed. They already think something bad is going to happen. So what do you think is most likely to happen in that timeline, in that energetic state? Remember, the person's stressed and depressed, they're desperate, and they think something bad is going to happen. So what is the most likely scenario that is going to happen in their future, right? Probably something bad. Probably more of the same, at least, right? More of the same kind of struggles. So their tarot card reading might, or their psychic call might say, yeah, there's going to be some big changes coming up. It's going to be some big struggles, but you're going to grow through it, which is also true, right? You will grow through the struggles. But because you came to the reading with that energetic state of being desperate, depressed, stressed, or whatever, the most likely scenario for the channel, let's say, to read, and the energy that they'll pick up on is the energy that you already have. So it's in a way not really necessary. Do you see what I mean? In a way, it's not really necessary because the energy they're going to pick up on is the energy you're already resonating with. And this is why when you might have the psychic call, you might say, yeah, that resonates. Yeah, because resonating, when you say something resonates, it means it vibrates at the same frequency that you're currently at. But if you're already in a stressed and depressed state, then it's not good that it resonates because you want to change the frequency. So, so you need to, before you do any of this stuff, before you go and do a psychic call, numerology, all this stuff, my advice, if I could summarize my advice in a nutshell here, avoid tarot, channeling, and psychics. First, decide specifically what you want to actually create and manifest. And once you've decided that, and you've decided, you visualize like the clone of yourself, what would this person do? If they already had the result, what would they do? How would they talk? What would they spend their day doing? Write it all down, like a kind of character description of yourself, like of the person that you want to become, and then just do it every day. Just be that person. Alongside that, and this is what I did, you can use other things, bits of information, to kind of build up a bigger picture about you and the energies that are most likely to influence you. This is where you bring in things like astrology, numerology, personality tests, zodiac signs. You can bring in these things and they will give you kind of like a hint, a clue about, am I better working with people or on my own? Am I better working in the morning or the evening? They give you these little clues. you see. But yeah, in my opinion, avoid the tarot, channeling, and psychics, at least at the beginning. Give yourself, I would say, 3 months. Avoid it for 3 months. And during that 3 months, just focus only on what you actually want to create and experience. I'll have a quick smoothie break and then I'll be back. I'm going to wrap up in a little bit, but I've got time for some more questions. So if you leave any questions in the chat, they'll come here. And if you like any of the stuff, feel free to become a channel member, super chat, whatever. I don't know how it all works on YouTube, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. So you need to focus on what you want. That's the main thing. Focus on what you want to create, and then take that as the baseline, and then use numerology and astrology to kind of build a bigger picture about, who you are, the influences that are likely to affect you. So while I wait for if anyone has any questions, I want to briefly talk about this thing that's been popping up on the bottom here, which is the Freedom Tribe, which is basically a community very similar to these live streams, but more detailed, and we talk about more topics that I can't really speak about here, and we go into more detail, more personal. And basically that community has several things. It has access to a growing library of audio tracks, which can really help you kind of manifest things. It helps to raise your vibrations. The community live streams, quite similar to this, maybe a bit more relaxed, and we also kind of dive into various topics, all kinds of topics, right? Raising vibrations and frequency, how to escape the matrix, build an online business that gives you passive income based on doing things you like doing versus working for somebody else in a job where you don't like it, and all kinds of stuff like that. I'm actually not going to talk too long about that because, yeah, the link's been there for a while and it is in the description, only on the YouTube channel version. So if you go to Awakening, well, actually, the easiest way would be to just go to astralhq.com/freedom. And then you can see there's a little video from me there, explains a bit more about how it works. Irina says, hi, hey, how you doing? Ryan says, thanks, you're welcome. I'd love to hear any, debates or criticisms of this. Anyone who wants to challenge me on any of this, I'd love to talk about it, in an open way. Let me just get this recording again. Because I've thought about this long and hard, and I have researched it quite a bit. Someone on Facebook says, what's your thoughts on hypnosis? Hypnosis is, well, it's not super related to this because it's something that you can control. But it's actually, I would say, very good. I would say hypnosis is one of the most powerful things you can use to change your subconscious beliefs. Oh, actually, you know what? This is quite relevant now that I think about it. This is very relevant. So, like I said before about the train track, you're going down this path, this timeline, if you will. And if you don't change anything, this is the timeline you're most likely to go on. And this is what you're most likely to kind of experience in your life. But then I said, well, actually, you can just change the track you're on, right? Hypnosis is one of the best ways of changing the track. Because when you try and change the track you're on, you're going to have to you're going to fight against all of that other stuff that's holding you on that track. Your programming, your astrological influences, your societal influences, what your parents want you to do, what you think you should do. You see, all of these things are going to be keeping you on that track. Hypnosis allows you to bypass all of those beliefs and go round the back. So if you imagine your brain is kind of here, dictating what you're going to do, hypnosis allows you to go around the back of the brain and kind of put your own, just kind of change the track you're on. Your conscious mind, here's a better way of saying it, right? Your conscious mind is dictating things and it filters everything. So when an information comes into your conscious mind, let's say if I tell you a new idea, you can gain muscle easily. Your conscious mind might step in and say, no, Stef, gain muscle because I've tried before and because the way my metabolism is set up means that I can't, or I can't get enough calories, so therefore I can't do it. Like all of these excuses and justifications, all of this programming comes bubbling up in the conscious mind, and you reject the idea. You say, no, I can't do that, and the idea doesn't get to you don't change, basically. With hypnosis, you go around the back. So you first get into a sort of subconscious state where your conscious mind becomes less active. So you're not able to filter out things as easily. You're not able to reject ideas off the cuff. It's as if your brain kind of has to be open and it has to hear the ideas out. It has to actually give them a chance. And if you do it often, I've used hypnosis. I've used things like subliminals and hypnosis in my life. So I highly recommend them. Hope that answers the question. All right, let's see what we have there. Flippy Tunes from YouTube says, what do you think about the truth behind people searching for answers? I love what you're talking about, the focusing and creating. What would my clone do? So I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. What do I think about the truth behind people searching for answers? Well, I think fundamentally we've always been searching for answers as a species. We're always, and you say here about the higher power, yeah. To me, that's the most interesting, fascinating topic that exists, is figuring out or trying to figure out, why are we here? How do we exist? Who made us, or did anyone make us, and why? And how does it all work? Like these questions, I mean, this is why I do what I do. I'm so obsessed with trying to figure out these answers to these questions and then sharing them. Because, when you truly learn and understand and love something, the strongest instinct is that you'll want to share it with people. So I would say, yeah, super interesting. Ryan says, do I have a recommendation for a good hypnosis video or method? To be honest, there's some recommendations I could give, but I'm not going to give them because I have a better idea for you. And this is something I've been doing quite recently. Well, not even recently, years ago, but I've been doing it more recently. You can actually do it yourself. So let me explain what I mean. What I actually did is I opened up iMovie on my Mac, and I basically created like a hypnosis video for myself, where I would collect all these images, like from my vision board, images of things I want to experience, some things I want to have, and some things I want to be. I think it's good to have a mixture of them, right? All three. And I basically just created this kind of like motivational video where it just flashes things like really quickly, like, you are strong, or I am strong, I am healthy, I love that I'm abundant, all these different affirmations and things, which I flash quickly across the screen, along with these images and nice music and stuff. So yeah, if you don't mind making videos, I'd recommend you do it yourself, because then you can write down the exact messages, the specific things you want to hypnotize and create a belief around. Because if I recommend like a good hypnosis channel, let's say, you'll go and watch it, but then it'll be really generic stuff like, I am healthy, I have energy, I sleep well. It won't really apply to you specifically, because everyone's unique. Everyone's trying to use hypnosis to do very different things. It might be you want to create or change a very specific belief that only you really understand. So yeah, my recommendation would actually be to make it yourself. If you do want some more general ones, then there's a bunch of free channels on YouTube, but the quality tends to be not great. I do actually have a package of subliminal audios called Shifting Vibrations. It's very general. So, what happened there? Oh, I think we're still live. That's weird. Are we still live? I think we're still live. It says live, so. Yeah, if it's very general, so it's like how to raise, affirmations and subliminals around raising a frequency, manifesting, becoming abundant, healing, becoming, high energy. Those subliminals are actually, they're very general, but they are actually in the tracks. So yeah, I know it's my own tracks. You obviously don't have to take my recommendation for my own tracks. I get why you might not want to do that, but they are good. They are really good. I do stand behind them, and you can read people's testimonials and actually listen to like free samples on the site. So basically, the way you find that is astralhq.com, and then on the top it says store, and then you hover over that, and then it drops down and it says shifting vibrations. Or I think it's actually on the YouTube. There's actually a link in the description to shifting vibrations. That is basically a package of audios that I've created with our audio team, which has a whole bunch of like subliminals. And you actually already used them. Great. Well, that's good. So he says, I've been using those for meditation. Awesome results. So yeah, in that case, then obviously don't get them because you've already got them. But yeah, so in that case, I would recommend just to try and make your own. Use video software, create your own affirmations. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Someone on Facebook, for some reason it says anonymous. You're basically searching for a connection to your true self. Yeah, I mean, to me, most people are either searching for a connection to their true self, source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, or they're locked in slightly lower vibrations and they're not quite conscious enough, not yet anyway, they're not quite conscious enough to realize that. Because I don't know if you've heard about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's like a kind of like a psychological term. It's like a pyramid. If you imagine a pyramid like this, and there's various different layers of it. I don't know if I can pull it up here and show you. One second, I'll pull it up and show you because it's quite cool. Bear with me 2 seconds. Quite new to this streaming software. Okay, yeah, so I don't know how to zoom in. Well, you can probably see that, maybe. Yeah. So there's different versions of this, floating around. But where at the bottom you have these. At the bottom you have these really important things like it's physiological. So this means like food, water. You need those things. Before you have those things, you can't really focus on the levels above that. So in terms of searching for a higher power, to me, that's something that is difficult to do. It's difficult to have these conversations when you need food, because your only thoughts are, I need to eat, I need to find water. And then above that, you need safety. If you're being hunted by a tiger, you might find space to search for God or a higher power in that moment, in the form of like help me or prayer or something. But basically, it's quite difficult if you're at that level to ask these philosophical, ecological, understand things, because your only thoughts are, I need to run away from this freaking tiger. And the same with love. We all need love and belonging, esteem. When you get to near the top of the pyramid, I would say above halfway mark, that's when you can start to ask these deeper questions. So what I was trying to say earlier is, I think, yeah, fundamentally we're all eventually going to find our way back to source and ask these questions and like understand reality more, go back to our true selves. But I think sadly a lot of the world is in that lower part of the pyramid. They just need food. They just need clean water, you know. When they're kind of trapped in those lower levels of the pyramid, it's very difficult to philosophically question the nature of reality, or, you know, dive into these topics like we're doing here. Where if you're watching this, you're very lucky to have internet, a device, you know, I assume food, shelter, safety to some degree. So yeah, I would say my opinion is that everybody will eventually get to the top of the pyramid. They will eventually come back to source, question reality, and understand these things. But yeah, they first need to, you know, go above those basic human needs like food and water and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll wrap up in a second, but this has been quite an interesting one to dive into. There's obviously more I could say, but I don't want to bore you guys with too much waffling about this stuff. So let me look at some comments. Yeah, so basically, yeah, we talk about this more on the live streams in the Freedom community. So if you want like a more personal interaction, one-on-one community chats and stuff with me and the rest of the group, then you can check that out. The link has been, well, actually the link's been there for probably quite a long time. I'm going to remove that in a second. But the link's at the bottom there. It says astralhq.com/freedom. You see the little like blue banner at the bottom there. Please, by the way, just before you leave the stream, just give this a like or just comment or something just to maybe I'll take this one more question. Right, Mike says we're all gods. What does it take to realize that? So I'll end on this one actually, because this is quite a nice one. There was an Alan Watts video where he was basically describing, you know, like imagine if you were God and you were able to dream any dream, right, every night, and then it would feel like it's been 80 years long. So you're able to like experience anything in the dream. It lasts 80 years. You know, after a few nights of that, of living 80 years, doing everything you want, going on wild adventures and all this stuff, eventually, like after you've had, let's say, hundreds of years of being God, of doing everything, being everything, and nothing can harm you. You can move around and do everything that you want to do. Imagine doing that for like hundreds of years. Eventually, you'd probably get quite bored, and your adventures would start to get more and more risky. So you would eventually, and I resonate with this completely, because I imagine like, okay, if I was God, or if I was all powerful, what would I do? And eventually you would start to do these little games. Alan Watts was saying this in the video. You would play these little games like, one night I'm going to dream 80 years, and I'm going to just forget that it's a dream, just for that one night. And then the next time you push it a little bit further, and you say, today I'm going to forget that it's a dream, and I'm not going to be quite as powerful. I'm just going to take away some of my powers for this one, just to feel a little bit more vulnerable. It's a little bit more exciting. It's like if you're playing a video game on God mode. If you're a video gamer, you know what I mean, right? You're invincible, and if you put in a cheat code, you're playing a video game on God mode. Eventually, that gets boring. So you want to kind of remove the cheat code and take on more risk and be vulnerable. You want there to be danger, because it's more exciting, and you also feel more of a sense of achievement and fulfillment when you progress in the game, despite the risk that you could die or you could be taken out of the game. So I think fundamentally we're all God, we're all source, we're all like the same omnipotent energy. And to realize that, well, I think coming here, incarnating here on Earth, we went through the veil. I've read many books about this, different descriptions of it, but it's basically like this veil of illusion, this veil of forgetfulness, where we intentionally, I believe, forget who we really are. We like intentionally give up control. We literally say, right, I'm going in here to Earth, let's say. I'm going in here, I'm going to do my time. And then for this brief period of time, 80 years, 90 years, whatever, if we're lucky, I'm going to forget that that it's all me, that I am source, that I am the universe, and that I have all the power, and that time isn't real, and that we don't really die. I'm just going to temporarily forget all that stuff. So to answer your question, to realize that, I think it just comes down to belief. Personally, I believe that. So sometimes, when you find yourself getting stressed about stuff that's happening in life, like a tax bill, let's say, or there's a big spider in your bath, you got to kind of remind yourself, it's all just kind of like a game. You're already complete, you're already powerful. And yeah, exactly. Facebook comment says, we came to experience what it's like to be disconnected from God or source. Exactly. Except we're not disconnected. We are always connected. But I would say, yeah, we came here to experience what it's like to forget that we're connected. That's probably more accurate way of saying it. We came here to forget that we're connected to source and that we are source. And the reason for that, well, I'm ending the stream now because it's going to go on too long. But the reason for that is another rabbit hole. Why, if we were God, if we were source, why would we want to forget that and come here? What's the purpose of it? Yeah, well, big questions, right? Anyway, that's for another stream. Yeah, leave a comment or a like or whatever. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's where I actually mainly go live, and that's where you have all the links. So if you were watching this somewhere else, then please check that out. Yeah, the YouTube channel is called Awakening Alliance. It might change depending on when you're watching this to Astral HQ. It's kind of the same thing because my website is astralhq.com. So I'm debating whether to change the name, but yeah. Yeah, that's been a good one. See you next time, guys.